instead. It would be sad if a custodian of the mail read clit and then went and opened the package to find out what was inside, slowing down your delivery. Things like this happen. I'm gonna call it screening or censoring, and it's usually done for social well-being, like safety, legality. Sometimes it's done for morality. Take, for example, the 25,000 Valentines that were refused by the Chicago Post Office in the late 1800s on the grounds that they were too passionate to be delivered. Now, this was over 100 years ago, but the messages of sexual shame and modesty have lingered up until today. This is why even sexologist Dr. Doe writes art instead of clit. One of the highest spikes in sexual censorship history was the Act for Suppression of Trade in and Circulation of Obscene Literature and Articles for Immoral Use. I know it sounds like short name, Comstock Laws. The year was 1873. Anthony Comstock, for whom the laws were named, was living in New York. I don't think this has anything to do with the villain in BioShock, so let's continue. It's the latter part of the 19th century, a time period known as the Gilded Age, referring to its big city problems covered in a thin layer of golden excitement. The problems were that there were more people than there were systems to manage them. Electricity had become a part of daily living, and oil and steel were now economic powers. There were great waves of immigration and industry, but nothing in place to stabilize this wobbly growth spurt. So much chaos going on. Waste and pollution in the streets, rampant illness, poverty, corruption, cops being bribed with big money to turn their eyes from the flourishing life of vice, mainly sex. Anthony's intention was to eradicate this vice. Cursing, gambling, non-procreative sex. Note, Anthony was not a gray 69 when he started the crusade against obscenity. He began in his 20s with the New York Society for the Suppression of Vice, an organization aimed at regulating public morality. The society is known to have supervised newsstands and bookstores. They held up markets where lascivious information could reach the public. They attacked, they seized, they raided. They did whatever they could to rid the city of indecency, including a congressional push for purity. In 1873, Anthony's lobbying efforts for anti-pornography legislation passed. This became the Comstock Laws. Anthony was appointed special agent of the U.S. Postal Service, where he was given the right to enforce his laws, to govern the mail with a gun. Here's a man who's going into brothels and bathhouses, dragging people into the street to be arrested. Why would he go after the Postal Service? Because the Postal Service is a federal office, meaning he's not just suppressing vice in New York, he's suppressing vice nationwide. And he did. Tony could open any envelope or package. He could read the contents, he could destroy them, and he could arrest the sender or the recipient. He confiscated 15 tons of books, 284,000 printing plates, and 4 million pictures. This doesn't even include all the letters, brochures, medical journals, and contraception he took. According to Tony and his comrades, smut needed to stay out of the mail. And this to them meant your Valentines, your pornography, your contraception, your information about sexually transmitted infections, and your medical textbooks. Oh, you're a med student waiting for your book to come in the mail so you can learn about the human parts that you're supposed to cut and mend?
No.
You want to send a patient information about syphilis?
Nope.
How about ways to protect himself?
No.
What about this brochure? Have him birth control for a patient who is on her 14th pregnancy.
Confiscated.
But I can get my porn right. Some of you will think that Anthony Comstock is a hero. I'm guessing that more of you think he's an evil baby. Officially, it's all unconstitutional. While the Comstock Laws ran for nearly 100 years, they were repealed in 1965 by the U.S. Supreme Court and people like me who believe that this is not dangerous or immoral. Stay curious. This video no way is meant to attack or demean the USPS or any other mail services. I was treated very professionally while organizing my sexual shipments, including the 200 condoms I sent to my friend in Germany.
Okay, so black women. I showed you this clip or short video by this doctor who's a sexologist, right? And about Anthony Comstock, who really was like the biggest prude that ever lived in America and who wanted to literally kill everyone else's joy in the country. And this guy is the actual foundational belief system that the Republicans use to try to get people to push forward with a nationwide ban of abortion, because the people, the white males of America who are actually in government and run the country, they have a big problem with women of any kind, but most importantly, black women who have the opportunity and the availability and the option of not being fully controlled by their fathers, husbands, and men in general. So I put that as a backdrop or the foundation for what I wanted to show you and tell you about the black woman, Fani Willis, who is going through one of these interrogational committees currently as the first black woman DA of Georgia. Out of a history of, I believe, like 95 white male district attorneys, no other woman, no other type of man, right? So you need to understand when you're hearing the bits and pieces and the clips of her testimony and of these hearings, that this is the backdrop. This is the actual attitude, because attitude is psychological, right? The attitude of these men, these white men that are in this committee, and why they're posing the questions, the insulting personal questions and allegations against this woman, because the mindset is that, you know, women not supposed to be able to do anything without fucking a man for something, or using a man, as they commonly like to refer to, gold digging to get something from somebody because they can't get it themselves. So understand that in the full context of what I'm telling you. I'm not going to go through a whole video explaining the history of the mindset of patriarchy, oppression, and suppression of women, but most especially black women in America, because to do that, I would have to go through the history of sex plantations and sex farms and sex breeding, specifically when it comes to black women who were enslaved in this country, which is too painful for me to go through or to do at the time. Okay? So I won't do that. But what I will do is tell you those things for you to understand that as the background and the push for why, when you live in a patriarchy, white men and bum-ass black males who don't have any power, who are mentally conquered and cowering, want to be in control of women. Because when women are not under control and they have the God-given right to exercise all their fully given rights by the Creator themselves, they move fucking mountains and they change this world around. And this is what these guys don't want to happen. So this is why this woman is going through what she's going through. And most importantly, because she is the first black woman district attorney of Georgia. And if they sully her name, sully her work, and her length of time in office, it's going to be a very long fucking time before another black woman is in office. So let's watch what Fani has to say from CNN about what's going on in her hearing.
Isn't it true that you met Mr. Wade October 2019 at a judges conference?
We haven't gotten to the point where Ms. Willis should be treated also in this.
I think we have.
I very much want to be here, so I'm not a hostile witness. I very much want to be
Not
here.
so much that you're hostile, Ms. Willis, it'd be an adverse witness. Your interests are opposed to Ms. Merchant's.
Ms. Merchant's interests are contrary to democracy, Your Honor, not to mine.
A Fulton County district attorney in charge of criminally prosecuting former President Donald Trump for interference in the 2020 election shockingly took the stand during a hearing in the case. Fani Willis had sought to avoid testifying about the allegation she was in a romantic relationship with the special prosecutor she assigned to the Trump case. But in an about face, she stormed into the courtroom and she insisted that she testify.
Please, give me the time period.
Mr. Wade visited you at the place you laid your head.
When?
Has he ever visited you at the place you laid your head?
So let's be clear, because you lied in this. Let me tell you which one you lied in. Right here. I think you lied right here. No. This is the truth, Judge. And it is a lie. It is a lie.
Ms. Willis?
You see.
Mr. Sano, thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes.
The Fulton County District Attorney made headlines when she brought RICO charges against the former president and more than a dozen of his campaign staff. In an extraordinary moment, Willis marched into the Atlanta courtroom while attorneys were arguing over whether she should be forced to testify. As she approached the prosecutor's table in court, she looked before the judge, and as the entire gallery watched, she uttered 4 simple words: "I'm ready to go."
I would ask, I need 3 documents in front of me, and they're the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant. 3 filings? Does anyone have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant? Does the court have the 3 filings of Ms. Merchant?
When you say the filings, you mean like the pleadings?
The pleadings, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I think we can locate those for you in the supplemental.
I want the one filed on January the 8th, the one filed immediately after we filed ours, and the final one.
If you want to take a break to get them, I can make a copy. I think we have one.
You know, the only copy I have is going to have my notes on it. So if we don't have a clean copy,
Have a 5-minute break during
let's
all
take
the
5.
documents.
All right.
I'll sit here and wait for him.
Defense attorneys asked Willis to clear up the timeline of when she hired Wade, as they argue Willis hired him after the two were involved in a romantic relationship.
Let's start back in 2019.
Yeah.
So you and Mr. Wade met in October 2019 at a conference?
That is correct. And I think in one of your motions, you tried to implicate I slept with him at that conference, which I find to be extremely offensive. I stayed at that conference. Mr. Wade was my teacher. I did not meet him when he taught the class. I was standing outside talking to Lisa Reeves, who is a judge. Me and her were just having a conversation. Mr. Wade walks up. I think they hug each other. They have some brief conversation. She introduces us.
But Robin Yurdy, Willis's old college friend, told the court earlier the romantic relationship began in October of 2019. Willis previously lived in Yurdy's condo prior to their fallout, and the defense hammered her on whether Wade visited the condo prior to the election interference case. But Willis fired back, asserting the defense accusations were all lies.
How often did Mr. Wade visit you at a place where you were living between 2019 and 2021?
So you want to start with the lie that he lived with me in South Fulton in 2019, a home he's never been to? That's one lie you told in your document.
Judge, I didn't ask her about that.
Ms. Merchant, I want you to ask a very precise question. I think she's saying and answering that he did not live with her. So why don't we break that up into smaller
Ever.
parts?
And I didn't ask about living.
But you put in your, while we're talking about professionalism, while we're talking about professionalism, she put in 3 different documents
Folks,
he
you'll
lived
have
with me.
full opportunity to respond.
in
And filed that with the court.
in 2019,
He's never been to South Fulton. In 2019, I lived in South Fulton. He has never been to my residence in 2019, ever, not once.
in
2020?
2019, he's never been to your residence, any place.
I lived in my home in South Fulton before I started getting the threats that were here, a house I paid for with my own sweat and tears. I'm no longer able to live there. But in 2019, I did. And in the 2 months of 2019 that I knew Mr. Wade, 3 months, the beginning of October, all of November, and all of December, Mr. Wade never came to my house in South Fulton. Let me help you out. I lived there in 2020. He never came to my house in 2020, let alone live with me, as you put falsely in these documents. In the first 3 months of 2021, when I could still enjoy my home, Mr. Wade never came to South Fulton, and it is certainly a lie that he lived with me.
Then it came time to question Willis.